Hello and welcome to the Journey to Success video series, where we interview successful, motivated, and inspirational individuals of the United Arab Emirates. In today's episode, Executive Principal of the Australian International School of Sharjah, Steve McLuckie, is interviewing Her Excellency Sara Al Amiri, Minister of State for Advanced Sciences in the UAE, leading the Mars mission, a successful Hope probe mission. She is also on the BBC list of the 100 most influential and inspirational women in the world in 2020. We are happy you've decided to join us on today's Journey to Success and look forward to the interview ahead.
Well, good morning, Sarah. How are you?
Good morning, Steve. I'm doing very well. How are you?
Very well, thank you. And I must say thank you so much for joining us today in our series of Journey to Success.
It's a pleasure being here with you.
Well, you've done so much. I know the last few months have been incredible for you with the mission to Mars. And talking to people at our school, we have a motto here of reach for the stars. Now, you've gone beyond that and you've gone to Mars. It's very special. But what about you, Sarah? What was it like being a young girl growing up in the UAE? Do you want to tell us a little about your story?
Sure. So growing up, reaching for the stars is something that we all have instilled in us, especially as young children learning and studying about space. But it was an area of work that we did not have an opportunity with growing up. So I did not grow up having a space sector in the Emirates. I did not grow up with a mission to Mars or a mission to anywhere or a spacecraft going to anywhere. And for me, it seemed that space was something that was not made for us. And it's not an area that we can work in or we can have our hopes and dreams pegged towards it. And that being said, I actually studied something that I'm quite passionate about, which is computer engineering, software design mixed with hardware design. But it was still something in the back of my mind, the fascination with space and the fascination with exploration. And I'm really glad today for my children to grow up at a time where they don't have these self-imposed limiting beliefs because of where they live. And they see so many different areas with which they can excel and grow and reach for the stars and beyond. And that's, I think this is an amazing evolution that we've seen the country go through, and an amazing evolution that we're seeing, I myself, I'm seeing my children live through and discover. And I'm sure, Steve, you're seeing this more with the exposure that you have with the entire school. The language that they're speaking, what they're fascinated about, what they're interested about, what having my 4-year-old point out Mars in the sky was something I don't think we had 4-year-olds ever do.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're so right. I suppose when I talk to my 4-year-old, when we talk about Mars, they're talking about the chocolate bar. It's just changed, you know, how much it's changed. And look, I think, what was it like for you going to school? What was your favorite subject? What was your journey? How did that sort of start when you were at school?
I loved math. And I think I fell more in love with maths when I learned trigonometry and geometry and so on. So maybe it was that fascination with space that I expelled in mathematics. So that's what I loved the most. But I remember approaching a school in general as a means to enrich my knowledge and education, more than it ever was about attainment of grades and excelling in exams and so on. That's why I love AIS, because it brings so many different facets of learning into it. And that's what always fascinated me about school, is one, expanding in areas that I was interested in and enriched my own personal knowledge. And that maybe made me more deeply rooted with some subjects and not deeply rooted with other subjects. And the other aspect of it is the ability to continuously explore and discover yourself with the environment that you're in. So I went to an international school, and I'm really grateful that I had that opportunity, because I was exposed to so many people from so many different backgrounds and so many different walks in life. that allowed me to form who I am today. And that's something that sometimes we take for granted. The environment that you're in is all part of this school experience.
Yeah, definitely. Did you have a favorite teacher or a mentor at school that you looked up to that gave you that push or really encouraged you to thrive?
I can't recall his name, but I do recall my 8th grade geometry teacher. And maybe this is something that's important to point out to the students, is that I was never an A sort of student. I was an average student across school and across so many different subjects. And teachers played a big role in instilling confidence. Yeah. And he was one that instilled my confidence in math. So I don't like all forms of maths. There are particular ones that just resonate very well with me, and I understand it and get it from the get-go. And for me in 8th grade, that was a turning point in understanding that we don't all excel as individuals across the entire fields that we're studying. So it's not about even science and math and arts has so many different sort of verticals that you go down. Yeah. You don't need to excel across all of them. It doesn't need to trigger you across all of them. For me, that was a moment where I realized that I actually loved that subject and was quite passionate about it. And the teacher had a wide impact in me for that transition point and understanding point.
It is amazing how, there's that moment in time that you remember being in year 8, that what a 12, 13-year-old about that. That's incredible. And so from there, as you went through your high schooling years, what were your parents like? How did they encourage you?
So my parents always encouraged the school as a venue for the attainment of knowledge. More than anything else. And that gave me an appreciation for learning and an appreciation for exploring more than anything else. So it wasn't something that you physically had to go to in the morning. You had to do it to get a degree. You had to do it to enter into university. It wasn't about checking boxes. Yes. It was about learning, and it was about enriching myself and as a member of society more than anything else.
Yeah. So as you grew up, if I can ask you this question, what piece of advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, lots of, that's a tough question to answer. That probably the toughest points or the toughest challenges that you live through or go through at the time seem so unsurmountable. But at the other end of it, and the tougher the challenge, at the other end of it, it is so fulfilling. And it's fulfilling to the point that you forget all the hardships that you went to. And that's a lesson that I hope to have learned at a young age. Yeah. I learned it later on, but I would have loved to have learned at a younger age, because it would have made me push through larger challenges very early on.
Yeah, wow. I mean, you could say you've pushed through that glass ceiling here in the UAE with what you have achieved, especially with what young ladies have achieved in this country. And I think it's amazing. So what advice would you give the young women of today?
I think there is no notion of glass ceilings. And this is something that I don't know if I was deaf to it, if it existed, and perhaps that's a mechanism to get over it. But I personally did not face any challenges being a woman here in the UAE. I actually had glass ceilings imposed on me when I went to international fora.
Yeah, wow.
But that's actually great. What I want to tell them is there is no notion of that, and if there was, maybe unbeknownst to me or unobserved by me, it could be possibly before, because I've never. It becomes noise. And you get to choose what becomes noise and what you allow to come through, and have a voice. And the fact I was a woman did not factor into any of my decisions, any of my career choices, any of my development choices. And therefore, I did not see that becoming a hindrance.
Yeah, wow, that's wonderful for you to say that. And so pleased. I have 2 daughters of my own, And we tell them you can accomplish anything, you know, you just have to work hard. And I think you epitomize all of that for all of us. So tell us about Mars, the mission to Mars. How did that start? And look, to be honest, you did it through COVID. When we couldn't even meet together, you managed to do something that was kind of remarkable. I mean, everyone wants to know, how was that possible? How did Sara Al Amiri get to go to Mars? How did that all happen?
It happened through a team. It was not me. If it was only me, we wouldn't be even anywhere close to 10 kilometers above Earth.
But you led it.
It was a remarkable team that was put together for this mission that came together. And I always recall one thing, and I think I've mentioned it so many times. I had somebody tell me, one of my close mentors in the space sector, Mike, told me about this when we first started this mission. He said, you would realize how much the team and how closely bonded the team is always the success of any space exploration mission. It's never about the technology. It's never about how good of engineers you are. It's never about how good of scientists and researchers you have on the team. It's about how great everyone is and how great everyone is working together. So that was one of the fundamental factors that allowed us to get such an amazing piece of technology that has been designed for the very first time, that functioned exactly according to the way it was built for. You don't get that in space. And it was due to the way the team worked together, the transparency that existed there, the way that we were open even with disagreements, and very vocal about it. And everyone was passionate about getting towards this one goal, about changing and transforming the way we all think as a society. And that became something that is above and beyond any one of us as individuals. And allowed us to continuously push forward with all the limitations. It's been a really difficult 7 years for all of us. It was not a walk in the park. I think we were able to get through the COVID experience because the past 5-6 years prior to COVID were tough. And we were working remotely. My son actually asked me today, what year did you start using Zoom? I started using Zoom in 2014.
Wow.
So we were well versed in working remotely, and because we were working across different continents with teams across different continents, it was normal going into that. And it was just about let's know what's going to happen, and let's imagine what could happen. Imagination plays a big role in building scenarios and avoiding risks. Let's imagine what could possibly happen. And we were very okay with moving things around. You never lose sight of what your objective is, but you're allowed to change the mechanisms by which you reach your objective. So we actually dropped a few tests we didn't need to do. We moved around our schedule. We even moved around individuals that were meant to be handling different aspects so that we can ensure safety of the overall team. And that's why we were able to meet the deadline, launch in July of 2020 rather than waiting in 2022. And I recall someone asking, I'm like, is there a possibility of postponing? And I said, no, that's not even on the table for us. It's July or never. And that's the mentality that we went into. And I recall like people saying that, okay, do you need to start discussions to launch in 22? I'm saying, no, 22 is not even on the table for us. It's 2020 and it's going to happen. And that's what made the team push forward always. It was always 2020, it's going to happen on this day. We promised that we're going to do this mission and deliver it in 6 years, and we will do it. And that's what pushed us forward.
Yeah, definitely. As a leader, did you in your own mind at some stage go, I don't think this is possible? Or did you ever think that at all? Did you think this is becoming insurmountable? I don't know, and you had to put the brave face on? Or did you always have that self-belief that, no, we can do this, there's going to be challenges?
Deep down inside, I did believe that we were going to do that, but that's in the larger perspective of things. As humans, we have our faltering moments. And yes, I did have my moments, not then and there during the pandemic, but even before that, things, you test your systems to the brink of failure to make sure that it's going to operate in the worst of environments in space. And there were points where things broke, and there were points where thinking, can we deliver this program exactly as promised with the exact parameters that were promised? And there were faltering moments, but it was always very momentarily, because as a team, and I go back to this, as a team, our discussions to fix any of those challenges and surmount them were always together. And we were always working with that one heart to get towards this goal. And that allowed the confidence to build up very fast. So it was faltering moments, but built up very fast in terms of, yes, we can do this. So what do we need to do to get this, to still meet our objectives? What do we need to do to still launch? What do we need to do? And that positive conversation was a major part of getting through the last few years.
Yeah, I think what you said beautifully there, one heart to get through, that one heart. I think, wow, that's amazing. There's one question here that I really liked. It was about, now for you, I mean, the things that you have done, what do you think are the most important skills or character strengths to be successful? I think schools teach a lot of content, a lot of things, but what are the skills that you think are needed to make it, and those strengths or those values?
Accepting failure and accepting wrong decisions, and that is part of the learning experience. So that for me is a major part that's instilled in me. It's okay for me to make mistakes, and the more you are pioneering, the more you are working in a frontier that is unknown, you are going to make mistakes. It's part of the learning process. You can't always be right. So that's something that I have on a daily basis, and it supports me a lot in making decisions. Because you make decisions on what you know today, and what you know tomorrow may lead to the point where that decision is correct or incorrect. But having that continuous sort of evaluation of what worked, what didn't work, and what didn't work, we acknowledge it and make it work is something that is very important to me on the way I work, the way I approach things, and the way I push forward. So if there's anything, it's that's allowed me to get to push forward with a lot of the challenges.
Yeah, wow. I think I mentioned to you before about, I had a couple of parents who have asked me, and I think they're wonderful questions about being a parent yourself. How do you manage to fit in everything that you do and manage to be the wonderful mum that you are? How does that happen? How do you juggle all of that?
It's hard, like anybody else who's even full-time moms or working moms and working parents, full-time dads. I think it's challenging just intrinsically to balance everything that's happening in life. And it's that realization that we all strive to maximize the amount of time we spend with our children. The amount of quality time we spend with our children becomes very vital. And that's what I use. Yes, there are days where I just get to see them very briefly, maybe in the morning. But I'll have, for example, texts with my daughter's young, but with my son, I'll have texts or a call. It's about providing them with the right environment, with the right interaction that is around to be able to do that. I'm very grateful that I have amazing support from my parents who are there for my children when I'm not around and I'm not at home. And when I'm at home, we have our very small routines that are quite impactful, I think, to all of us as individuals to bond as a family and allows us to move forward. So maybe something, and I was having this conversation, it's we carry a lot of guilt that sometimes we don't need to carry as parents, because our children are loved and they know they're loved and they're enriched through the process of what we go through. And it's just about balance, and priorities change every day. It's not, nobody has a static priority list. And this is maybe something that I've learned incorrectly on what are your priorities. You jot them down at the beginning of the year. I no longer believe that priorities are static. Priorities change every hour. They change every day. And as you evolve, the time that you spend on different things evolves with it. And I think that's how I juggle being a mother and working at the same time.
You've done an amazing job. Look, I know we're going to be out of time soon, but there was a question here that that I looked at. You were named in Time's 2021 list of the next 100 most influential people in the world. That is kind of amazing when you think of our world's nearly got 9 billion people in it, and you're one of the top. What's next for you, Sarah? What's next? What's the next thing that you're going to do?
So many things are buzzing, but one thing that I've been very passionate about is to ensure that there's a solid test bed for science and technology within the UAE, both from an economic perspective all the way down to a research perspective. And this is something that I'm very passionate about, and working really hard, be it in the policy making business or ensuring that businesses are equipped to be formed within the UAE, and ensuring that students have opportunities once they leave schools into universities into the workplace in areas that they are passionate about. And that's what's next for me, and that's what I'm currently working on a daily basis.
Wow. And we are very fortunate to be with you on this journey. Certainly, again, of what you've achieved. We all admire you of what you do each and every day, not just for the UAE, but for the world. I think that's one thing that's just incredible. So now, with the formalities finished, you're going to play a bit of a game with me. It's the quick round with Mr.
Okay.
Steve. And I've got some questions. Now, you can give me one-word answers or whatever pops into your head first. Okay?
All right.
So
Let's go.
we'll chat like easy. So an easy question. What's your favorite book?
The world is flat.
The world is flat. Okay. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions like that. So let's see how quick you can be. One-word answers. Okay. Your favorite holiday destination?
London.
London. Favorite TV show?
Grey's Anatomy.
Favorite meal?
Favorite meal? Bread. It's not a meal, but
Favorite
bread.
food? Bread. That's fine. If you could have a superpower, what would it be?
Invisibility.
Invisibility. Interesting. If you could spend a day in someone else's shoes, who would that be and why?
Oh, that's a tough one. That's a tough one.
That's a
I've got
tough
enough
one.
names thrown.
I can throw names.
You know what I'd be interested in? Joe Biden's shoes.
For about 10 seconds.
Joe Biden.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it'd be an interesting place to be. Yeah, definitely in his shoes. Yeah, definitely. Look, Sarah, I want to say thank you so much for joining us here at part of our journey to success. Again, I reiterate, we'll go through all your achievements, and it's just amazing to see what you've done. But I know as a valued parent at our school, I've listened to you speak here at school, the way you speak so eloquently, the things you've done in your life. We are truly proud of you as a parent here, but I think the UAE is truly proud of you, and I think the world is truly proud of you and what you've achieved in such a short amount of time. So thank you so much. Again, what you've been passed on to our students and our family is immeasurable, to ignite that spark into children for their journey to success.
Thank you so much, Steve, and thank you to you and all the teachers and all the parents for what they're doing throughout the last 12 months in this odd educational journey. As a parent, I'm really grateful for all the work and effort that the entire education system has put into educating our children, and all the time and effort that parents have put into supporting the entire education process. So more than anything, I am, and the rest of the world, are proud of teachers everywhere for everything that you've done to not stop education during a very critical point in our historic lifetime. So thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you so much, sir. You have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you.